more aggressive on the offensive end. But this is the kind of
Williams to Demon. Fox. Goodbye. Oh, if you don't like that, you don't like NBA basketball.
117-114, the final in this preseason game. One more left on Thursday against the Clippers down in La La Land, the new arena that Steve Ballmer built. 117-114, the final. Pretty good game, and Mike Brown was playing his regulars, and you thought that would happen a day ago, and that's exactly what happened. You look at the minutes, the starters logged some good minutes, and I like to see that.
Yeah, I got no problem with it. And we got a little insight into what Mike's thinking with his rotation. There were some good things. I thought Alex Len gave some decent minutes. And moreover, how about Jordan McLaughlin? A pleasant surprise, Grant.
Yeah, he played 20 minutes, shot the ball well. I like the fact that he had 5 assists. Looked like he was running the floor well. And so, I think, in the 2 games, you would have to give him a high grade, would you not?
Certainly. He's brought in a very small sample size, a nice calm, and also a high basketball IQ to that second unit. Really looking forward to see what he can do as he gets healthier.
I'm looking at some of the messages on our chat line. And by the way, it's fabulous to have you here. And we really appreciate that on the postgame show. And if you're new this year, please subscribe because we're going to be doing a lot of material coming your way. But it's preseason, folks. You know what? It's preseason. Like, look at this. I know it's preseason, but we should be concerned. No, you shouldn't be concerned. There's nothing to be concerned about. I mean, I don't understand this. I really don't. I'm looking at some of the other remarks about, this is a tough loss. No, it's not a tough loss. It's preseason. It's not a tough loss at all. Nobody gives a damn. All right. They lost. So what? Who cares? Means nothing.
Yeah, it doesn't start until October 24th. Look, it's the time you get into shape, Grant. The low shooting percentage from behind the arc. I'd be concerned if those shots were weren't wide open. The shots have been a little bit contested. They're not getting great looks all the time. But this is where you work the kinks out, everybody. Yeah. Get it out of your system now.
Sabonis was tremendous. He 29 points, 16 rebounds, 8 assists. The 3-point shooting obviously was not good tonight. And we saw that last year. Live by the 3, die by the 3, which is true of a lot of teams in the NBA. But, other than Keegan Murray, nobody shot the ball well from 3. And Malik Monk was not good tonight, off the bench. And
yeah,
it was a day ago he was talking about being tired. Well, he looked tired tonight.
He looked exhausted tonight, both mentally and physically. You know what's different about this live by the 3, die by the 3, Grant, is last year we were looking at 50, 55, sometimes in the neighborhood of 60 3-pointers. Throughout the preseason, it's been 28, 27. Tonight, 38. So, they've got to make good on a little bit more than what they did tonight. And coming into the game, Grant, only 24.8% from beyond the arc.
That's got to get better. I mean, I know you have DeMar DeRozan, who's not a 3-point shooter, and he's going to score different ways. But that percentage, I'm more concerned about the percentage than the volume of threes. That to me is the key.
Well, I'm concerned about both. This isn't a team anymore with DeMar DeRozan that you should be shooting 60 3-pointers, in my opinion.
No question.
It has to come down. And last year, when they played better, granted, it was forced to injury, Grant, that number was between 35 and 40 most nights. And that's when that net rating nearly tripled. But yeah, it's getting looks and getting familiar. You've got a guy that's a mid-range assassin and you're learning each other's tendencies, your spots. And Grant, this is only the 3rd or 4th time they've lined up against somebody in a different colored uniform. 4th time.
Exactly. 100% correct. Hey, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a call. And you can join us right here on the post game. Again, the final 117-114, the Jazz prevail. And to me on Thursday, the only thing that means a damn thing to me is no injuries. That's all you want on Thursday, no injuries.
Yeah, are you even rolling out the starters on Thursday nights?
Probably not. And if I do, it's going to be maybe 8 minutes, a half, just to give them a little bit of a run. But no, not. I tell you right now, I wouldn't dress Sabonis. I wouldn't dress Fox. I wouldn't dress DeMar DeRozan. I wouldn't dress Monk. I mean, if it were me, And I'm not Mike Brown. I'm not second guessing Mike Brown. I'm just saying I don't see any point in it.
Sure. Yeah, I don't disagree. This felt like the dress rehearsal. And again,
Yeah.
we're looking at the end of the game. We're looking at the fact that they did not win, but there were a lot of positives in this game and throughout the post or off season, preseason, excuse me. How many turnovers did they force tonight? A ton. Offensive rebounds tonight, a ton. The things that they are trying to get better at. So look at positive rather than the negative.
Big difference in block shots in this game, though.
Huge difference in block shots. It speaks to the size, Grant. You go against a Walker Kessler. You go against, you saw that with the Blazers, with their two big guys, Ayton and so, yeah, absolutely.
Well, you know, when you look at the Kings roster right now, I don't worry that much about their bench production because the bench is going to be much better pretty soon when you get Trey Lyles back and when Kevin Huerter is active. All of a sudden, your bench is going to be solidified. So it might be a little thin next week when you open up the season, but eventually, assuming that those two are good, the bench is going to be a lot better.
Yeah, it should be. And I'm not convinced at this point that Kevin Huerter can't work his way or won't work his way back into the starting lineup. I think Keon Ellis has had a little bit difficult of a preseason so far. So that's something to keep your eye on. But, you know, Trey, that one's a little touchy, Grant, because we went through this at the start of the season last year, and now we're back to the same spot again. They desperately need him.
All right, 117 and 114 the final. We would love to hear from you here on the post game. We've got a lot of activity coming your way. We've got football that we're mixing in during the week right here on If You Don't Like That. We've got baseball that we're mixing in. So we got it all. This is technically our post game show, but because it's the preseason, if you want to deviate a little bit, I'm not going to, you know,
you're not gonna go off.
But we don't deviate once the regular season starts. When we do a post-game show during the regular season, it's the NBA. We don't talk football in the post-game show. We don't talk baseball. Once the regular season starts and we do these shows, then it's all basketball. Now, we do other shows that we talk about everything. But when it's a Kings post-game show, halftime show, Ryno on the pregame, that's what we're talking about.
Absolutely. In fact, if you want your dose of football, Sean Salisbury live right here tomorrow, 3:00, Grant and Sean.
Looking forward to it as always. Love having Sean on. You know, you also talk about the free throws for Sacramento. 19 attempts, 73%. They made 14 of them.
I think it comes down to fatigue, Grant. Look at how much this team was running. The Jazz only took 71 shots. The Kings took 105. The Kings' pace was much higher. That is something that, you know, for a couple weeks into the season, and we're not seeing an uptick with that percentage. Let's talk about it. Not so worried about it right now.
Someone says, Huerter? Are you kidding me? Lyles? That's what they're counting on. I totally disagree with you. I think Kevin Huerter's a good player. I think that, you know, he didn't have his best year last year, but I've seen Kevin Huerter play a lot of good games. So I totally disagree with you. I think Kevin Huerter can be very important for this team if he's right. And by right, that's the good Kevin Huerter. And I've seen it very often. So I disagree with you.
Some of Kevin Huerter's best work has come off the bench, especially in Atlanta. So he is plenty capable, especially as a spot-up shooter.
117, 114, the final with one preseason game left, and then we start for real next week. All right, so I asked you this after the Portland game on yesterday's show where the Kings played against the Blazers, and I asked you, you know, are you concerned about anything? And you said, well, not really, but after watching this team, for all intents, the preseason, assuming that we don't see a lot of regular players on Thursday, what is the one thing, though, that you think's got to get significantly better for this team to achieve their goals this year?
It's 100% the defense. The offense will come along, Grant. They'll be able to get to their spots. They can run different things. They're not showing everything, but the defense is a problem. It is a silver bullet when you allow straight line drives. You saw a few of them in the first half. That's what opened up opportunities and the biggest plays for the Jazz. So the help defense overplaying in straight line drives.
Someone said, I saw a report that the Kings are still looking at Ingram and Levine. I don't believe that.
I would be surprised if it's Levine. Ingram, I could see if we got to pick one name out of the two. He's got 1 year left on his contract, $36 million. If it worked out here in Sacramento, you could re-sign him without a cap effect because he is your own free agent. But I don't know, Grant. I don't.
Who are you going to have to give up to get him?
Well, you're probably looking at a Kevin Herter, and that's where it gets complicated. A Trey Lyles. Now you're giving up more depth on the front line that you don't have. So it's a great point. What is available that they would want, and are we at a point in the season where you are able to give up enough players to make that happen and still put a product on the court?
See, and as far as Zach LaVine goes, to me, that would have already happened before. That would
100%.
so I don't see that.
And here's the other thing. Anybody that's paying attention to Vegas now that the Kings may be the favorites for either of those players, that's because the Kings were the only serious teams looking at those players. So that doesn't change a thing because the Kings traded Jalen.
Not only that, what did you just say your biggest concern is? Defense. How do those moves make you better defensively?
They do not. It's an offensive
doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it gives you a little bit more length defensively, but the Kings' problem isn't having active hands and getting their hands on the balls. It's not the issue. It's staying in front of somebody and communication. Grant, you sat next to the court for many years. This team clearly is not communicating all the time, and you can see that with the wide open threes they're giving up.
Again, one preseason game on Thursday, and then you get the T-Wolves in town. It will be Minnesota's second game, actually, and it will be the Kings' first game. And we'll be talking about this team each and every day on all of our shows, and, of course, the programming with the pregame, the halftime, and the postgame show. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any thoughts on the game, definitely give us a call, and we'll put you on, and you can talk about whatever. I know it's a little bit more difficult to talk about these games because the vast majority of our viewers didn't watch the game. You know, they're following it online or various things. I mean, you could have gone to the Kings website, but really a lot of people are not able to just watch the game like they normally do and then comment. So it's a little bit different during the preseason.
Yes, certainly. Once we get ramped up in the regular season, you will see this room very full with a lot of calls waiting. In fact, JR, we saw you just try to call. We'll get you on right now if you want to call back. And one of the best things about doing this pregame or postgame show, Grant, is the viewers and the educated takes and pointing things out. We could go on for days about how knowledgeable most of you are when it comes to this game.
And I'm looking for a rant with Grant. So if you have an item from the game or the Kings or the NBA that you want me to rant on, I'll be happy to do it. Don't forget that we are brought to you in part by New Works Plumbing. They've got a fix for you. They are available 24/7 for your plumbing needs and repairs. Just go to sackserviceplumbing.com or call the number on your screen. That's New Works Plumbing. They've got a fix for you. And don't forget about Sunrise Landing, the newest residential community in Colusa. Get all the information at ColusaSunrise.com. This is a Bozona development project in Colusa. Many models to choose from. Remember, no Mellorews, no homeowners. Great location adjacent to the Colusa Golf and Country Club. Good access to the major arteries. Just go to ColusaSunrise.com. You'll get all the information you need on Sunrise Landing. Again, ColusaSunrise.com. Well, good game tonight. Kings fall a little bit short, but I think there's a lot to build on it. You know, I see some disdain in the comments, you know, this and that. Yeah, I'm not worried about it. I've told you this. I told you this before the first preseason game. I don't put anything into wins or losses in the preseason. I'm looking more at trends. I'm looking at combinations. I'm looking at rotations. And even that sometimes, you know, a coach is not going to display their full hand on what they're going to do in the preseason. So I'm not that worried about anything.
Spot on. And everybody's hyper-focused on the three-point trend. There's some other good trends going on, like points in the paint. The Kings have beat every team in the paint again tonight, 60-44. So once that three ball starts to fall a little bit, they're going to be just fine. Speaking of our callers, let's kick it off tonight with Dirk. Welcome on with Grant and Ryno, Dirk.
Hey, guys. I agree with Ryan. The defense looks a little rough. So it's taking my excitement down a bit. I was curious.
Yeah, but you know what? Can I interrupt you for a minute? You're going to be saying that for 82 games this year. I'm just sorry. This is not a defensive team. They're not going to be a defensive team. I think we got a little spoiled last year in the final 2 months of the season when Mike Brown, by necessity, had to change the style of play. But when you get DeMar DeRozan and you have him on the floor with Fox and Sabonis and hopefully Murray and Monk coming off the bench, you're an offensive team. You're not a defensive team. Let's just deal with reality here.
Okay, be that as it may, the offense then has to be even better. That's the only conclusion, right? I was
Yes.
actually curious what you guys thought of Jordan McLaughlin now.
Good.
Having seen him.
Ryno?
Yeah, Dirk, I love what I've seen over 2 games. In fact, he kind of feels like a Patty Mills a little bit from what I've seen the last couple of games. He's doing the little things for that second unit that Mike Brown's been looking for with the bench guys that take things off of Fox and Sabonis's plate.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about him last year, briefly, like, I don't know, months ago. But I find that there's a lot of value in seeing what the general opinion of players are in subreddits on previous teams, because the overall sentiment was high on this guy, even though he's like your backup, maybe third guard. But he's like you said, he does the little things, and it's just enough of a spark that you could see that in a game that's not going well. He comes in, gives you some sort of turnaround. So I'm looking forward to see how he fits on this team. But that's all I got for tonight.
Appreciate that, Dirk. I think it's a great point because you look at Mike Brown's, and this was the closest thing that we got to seeing what a rotation could look like for the Kings. His first rotation goes Monk and then Jordan McLaughlin. So obviously they like what they see in practice. And Grant, you say it all the time. Practice is just as important as what you see in these games.
Yep. Right now in the preseason, practices take on a lot more importance than they do during the regular season. There are guys that are fighting for their jobs and playing time in practice as well. There's no question about that.
Yeah, and if it's even reasonable to say, just for my eyes, Domantas Sabonis looks like he's gotten more explosive. He looks like he's gotten a tad quicker. The three ball did not fall great tonight, but he is the one that's pushing this pace for this team, and he did it again for the 4th preseason game. Very impressed with him, Grant.
I'm totally on with you. He does look a little bit quicker. I think there are a lot of positives there, and if he stays healthy and he's not on the All-Star team this year, there should be an investigation. There really should. Yeah, I mean, seriously.
I'm with you. And Keegan Murray, what can you say about this kid? This kid is holding up a bad defense right now. He's making them tolerable. He's everywhere. He's communicating, and he's put on some size too. A couple of times tonight, he was very physical, and the guys felt it in the other uniforms.
I think he's the key to this year's team. I already know what I'm getting from everyone else. I mean that. And when I mean everyone else, I'm talking about the key players. I think he's the key. I think he's the difference maker on whether this team is going to be a top 4 team or a bottom 4 team. Because I think talent-wise, without being able to forecast injuries, I believe they're one of the best 8 teams in the West.
Yes, I agree with you 100%.
But I think if Keegan plays the way, and I'm not talking about defensively because he brings his glove to the field every game.
Sure.
I'm talking about offensively and his consistency. And I believe that can get better and more consistent. I can see this team fighting for the 4th spot in the West.
Yep, I'm with you there, and you got to like what you saw tonight in terms of him being he was attacking. He was getting in lanes. He was trying to create for teammates as well. The 3-point shot will come along. And again, granted, go back to this. This team scored 114 points tonight while shooting 26.3% from beyond the arc and 73.7% from the free throw line.
I don't agree with this at all, that the Kings have major depth problems. As we're seeing, if a couple of the top 8 players are out, they are truly lacking another wing. The 2 Joneses aren't ready for the NBA. I'll tell you, I don't agree with that. I believe if you have, and again, I use the word if, they don't have them right now. So I'm going to change the word from if to when. When you have Trey Lyles and Kevin Huerter, I don't think this team's lacking depth. I'm sorry, I don't agree with you. I think they're fine. Are they the best in the NBA? No. But I don't agree with you that they're lacking depth when everyone's able to play.
Yeah, the bench point disparity was not as bad tonight as it's been in the previous preseason games. And Grant, if we look at a 10-man rotation, right, you've got the 5 that we know about that are going to be starting. You go Monk, probably Jordan McLaughlin at this point, Trey Lyles, Kevin Huerter, Alex Len. That's 10. Mike Brown doesn't usually vary much out of that unless there's a rare instance or 2.
I'm not worried about a lot of the things that I'm seeing on the chat line. And by the way, we respect and we appreciate your messages. I just don't put too much into preseason. I think it's going to take, especially with a new major piece, and let's call it the way it is, DeMar DeRozan's a major piece. It's still going to take a couple of weeks before we see this real Kings team and what it's going to be. We're not going to know it on the Minnesota game. We're not going to know it after the Lakers game. It's going to evolve. It's going to take a few weeks. And I think people need to really understand that.
Yeah, we've only seen, and the Kings have played a little bit of zone defense. They're not showing their hand with some of their other more complicated looks. And as you said earlier in the show, offensively, we see with the DHO, DeMar doing some a little bit of a curl off of that, but they're not showing more than that. So once we get into the season, that's when it opens up. And Grant, the pace, I would say, is much higher than DeMar has ever played at in the NBA.
No question about it. It's totally different. Hey, I want to tell you about EDH Motors, Automotive Reimagined. This is a long overdue new concept. No obligation to any franchise or big corporation. Just two people, David and Adam, trying to do something different and better. They offer new vehicle brokerage. They offer vehicle consignments. They'll sell your vehicle for you. And, of course, they can buy your car. And they sell pre-owned vehicles. Hell, they'll even sell your RV or boat. You'll take delivery at their beautiful lounge in El Dorado Hills. You don't have to deal with general managers. You don't have to be pushed into the finance office, blah, blah, blah. Here's the website for you. Okay, info@edhmotors.com. Info@edhmotors.com. And give David and Adam a call. I think you're going to really enjoy this new concept. It's awesome. Again, info@edhmotors.com. EDH Motors, Automotive Reimagined. 117-114, Ryno. The Jazz prevail. And I got to believe this is the last we're going to see of the regulars until Minnesota. They might get a sweat against the Clippers, but I don't think it's much more than that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you might get a little bit of extended minutes, though, from Malik Monk. You got to get that out of his mouth a little bit, and you need to see more. Because remember, he missed a couple of games. He needs to catch up a little bit. But yeah, everybody else, this was it, in my opinion. This was their dress rehearsal.
Someone said Keegan isn't a 4, Sabonis shouldn't be a 5, Keon shouldn't be a starter. Okay, Coach, who should start and who should play at those positions then? Come on, Coach Chris. You don't like it? Tell us who should be starting then.
You know that Sabonis guy, Chris, was all NBA last year?
Yeah, I don't know if he forgot that or not. And he's also a 3-time All-Star, or did we forget about that too?
Exactly right. Must have forgot that one. Look, you can make that argument. It's something that's been going for a long time about Keegan's natural position, but Keegan's put some weight on. Jerry Reynolds talked about that earlier today. He likes the strength and the weight that Keegan's put on. It's been a good thing, and he's embracing the role at the position he's playing.
All right, Scout says, I agree, Grant. It's only preseason, but the problems from last season are still there. I do believe that the identity of this team really is not going to change that much, with the exception of the last 7 or 8 weeks where they did change based on necessity. This is an offensive team. This is not a defensive team. I believe that until we see this team for a few weeks in the regular season, I'm not prepared to say that they have the same problems from last season. I need to see it because there's so many different pieces to this team. I'm not ready to go there just yet.
I think the identity does shift a little bit. I'm with you that it is offensive, but it shifts away from as much focus on the 3 ball. I think there's going to be a bigger focus on the mid-range. I think you're going to try to see the Kings get into sets more like what you saw in the first preseason game against Golden State, and you want to keep seeing these trends where they are beating teams in the paint every single night.
Okay, so based on what you just said, your points per game should be a little bit lower then, correct?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily at all, because you're shooting. Last year, the Kings shot very well from the 2-point range. They just didn't shoot very many of them. So you're getting that up with the pace up. You still put up 38 threes. I expect the Kings to shoot at least on average, probably around 38% from beyond the arc at minimum. That's 125 points a night, Grant.
I'm not as crazy about analytics as a lot of other people, but the analytics would say no. Over a span of a year, that's not going to translate into more wins or more points. I understand. If you told me the Kings were going to score 125 a game, of course, who wouldn't sign up for that? That would be
sure.
that would be freaking unbelievable. But they're not going to average 125 a game. But well, let's see. It's going to evolve. I do agree with you that the volume of threes will come down. And by the way, I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
But it can't be a drastic reduction.
35 to 40 is where I think it should be. Jerry Reynolds said the same thing. Tonight we were at 38. They just didn't convert.
You know what? And I'm good with that. Don't you think that's a good number?
I think it's a perfect number. That is what it balance. It's all about balance. Play to your strengths.
Yes.
Be consistent.
Well said.
We go to Jay. Welcome into the show tonight, Jay. You are on with Ryno and Grant.
How you guys doing?
Good.
Good.
No neck, Jay. How are you, buddy? I never see your neck when you're on. You only see you from your chin up. How are you, my man?
I'm good. There's a lot of Kings fans freaking out, and I just joined right now, so I was kind of briefly hearing your take on it. But where I stand with the, sorry, my pup is going.
Don't worry about it. All good.
Long story short, I'm not really freaked out. There's a couple teams that start off, slow. We're pretty much don't have a bench, right? Well, we kind of had our bench today, but for the past 3 games before that, we didn't have our bench. We had our back of the bench, and we had a guy that we just traded yesterday play for the first game for a good amount of time. But I'm not really worried. So I wanted to get your guys' takes on that because I just joined briefly.
I'm not worried until things don't go well in the first couple of weeks of the season, which I don't forecast. I don't get worried about anything I see in preseason. And I really mean that. I've been through a lot of preseasons where I remember having conversations with G-Man and Jerry on the plane after games, and we're like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden the regular season starts and, things look a lot better. And conversely, there have been a lot of good preseasons and you're thinking, wow, we're going to have a pretty good year this year. And you start off and you're 2-8, So I don't honestly put a lot of stock in the preseason. I never have. Same thing in football. I don't put anything in the preseason of football other than who got hurt and who's healthy. That's all that matters to me. I'm the same way in the NBA. I don't put a lot of stock into it. The veterans don't, even though you saw Sabonis play great tonight, the veterans don't have the oomph. They don't play the same way in the preseason as they do in the regular season. The crowds aren't the same. Nothing's the same.
Mm-hmm. That's one thing I mentioned with Ryno after the first preseason game was they needed more urgency when they play. Like you said, the veterans, those guys, that you could kind of tell. I don't want to say lollygagging on the court, but it's they understand this is preseason and it's kind of figuring each other out. I would say, like you mentioned earlier, Sabonis had a great game. I knew he had a great game, but when I actually looked at the stat line, I was like, whoa, 29 points and 15 rebounds. That's pretty dang good. And then
you get a moron comment like this. Just judging from the point of the eye test from or after 4 preseason games, we suck big time. We need quick improvement. Go get your eyes checked.
Well, you know what you guys should do?
What?
Ryno, you should take a list of the guys right now, and write their names down, and then when it comes to the end of the season, call them back out and see, when we're doing much better. Oh, I thought we sucked. Oh,
Jay, we don't need to do that. Our chat is so great; they police themselves.
That's correct.
No, I was just saying, hey, I just want to remember.
I don't take receipts.
You said that, right? You said this and that. Okay.
I don't take receipts. I just like to point out stupidity and stupid comments.
Oh, well, I'm like Costco.
That's what I do. I just like to point out stupidity on the channel. Whenever I see stupidity, that's how I did it on the radio for 27 years. When I see asinine, stupid comments, I like to point them out. And I like everyone to realize how stupid a comment like that is.
It is, yeah. And I want to get you guys' take too, because you guys were mentioning Aaron Rodgers and his ayahuasca and mushroom trips and all this other stuff. And they got Devontae Adams, and they also fired their head coach. There's a lot going on with that organization. I personally don't like that team. I know you're from New York, Grant, so please, with all due respect, I don't like the Jets.
I'm not a Jets fan, never been a Jets fan. Getting Devontae Adams is a big move. I actually think Buffalo getting Amari Cooper is a better move than the Jets myself.
Great point.
Oh, I think they overpaid.
I understand, but overpaying doesn't mean anything to you or me if we're a fan. We don't give a damn if the players – well, we don't. Who cares?
Right.
All you care about is whether that player makes the team better. You don't give a damn how much money they're making. Who cares?
No. By overpaid, I meant they overpaid the trade. Not
you mean in terms of what they have to give up?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
No worries. No,
Yeah,
seeing what
well,
you get for
you know
for
what?
Devontae,
Maybe not, because you don't know who the draft picks are going to turn out to be. They could be studs or they could be busts. You know what you're getting in Devontae Adams. You're getting a
that,
top flight
oh
receiver.
no, that's what
Although
I'm saying. No,
but
I'm
he's
saying
31.
they got
He's
to.
already had a hamstring issue this year, and he's going into an environment that he's never experienced before. And Aaron's already getting ripped for his press conference, throwing one of his Williams under the bus for the final route of the game. Boomer Esiason destroyed Aaron Rodgers on his morning radio show in New York. So I'm just telling you, the Jets are about one loss away from being in implosion mode.
I agree, but that's what I was referring to was after seeing what they got for Devontae Adams and then seeing what the Bills paid to get Amari Cooper. I think the Bills overpaid to get Amari Cooper is what I meant.
But the Bills also are in it to win it all this year.
Yeah.
By the way, I want to point this out because you said you joined us a little late. Before you came on, I made the comment that during the preseason, I'm okay to deviate a little bit into other topics that aren't Kings or NBA related. I want everyone to know once the regular season begins and we do a post-game show, like if Jay wanted to call up and talk football, I would say, Jay, you need to call tomorrow on one of our regular shows because we're talking basketball. During the preseason, because it is preseason, I'm okay to kind of go in a different path. But I just want people to know once the regular season begins next week against Minnesota, when we do these shows, it's about the Kings and the NBA, not the NFL.
It's game time. No, I'm with you. I could give a SHI, what about the Jets and the other teams when it's game time. So
you might step on a landmine if you mention Jerry Jones or ayahuasca around here in a week.
And we appreciate this. Love you, Grant. Hope I'm wrong. Well, listen, you are hopefully wrong, but you can't judge it based on 4 preseason games. That's the only point I'm trying to make. You can't look at the preseason and come up with conclusions about what the whole season is going to be like. You just can't. It doesn't make sense.
Can I ask you guys about the Jalen McDaniels move? And it's very funny that happened because, Grant, you called it when we did the Davion Mitchell trade. You called it. You said it's going to look very different by training camp, and Jalen McDaniels might not even be on this team. And look what happened. So I want to get your thoughts. What do you guys think the Kings are going to do with that position or that roster spot they have open? And yeah, just
Ryno, what do you think?
Jason Anderson is reporting that it may be the precursor to a bigger move for the Kings. It's ambiguous to me. I don't think there's any rush in Monty McNair's opinion. I think Trey Lyles is still following the same timeline as they originally outlined when he was first injured. However, I would not be surprised if the Kings did make a move, but I don't think it's going to be a panic move. If anybody thinks we got to do something or else this team's screwed, that's not what's going to happen, and that has not been Monty's MO.
You're exactly right.
Absolutely.
But I would also say this. Monty McNair will not be the GM of this team if the Kings don't make the playoffs this year.
That's true, too. After, once again, you mentioned it's preseason. If we do start off the season where it's looking kind of ugly, is it like a question of what do we do next in regards to, is it the team? Is it the coach? We just extended Mike Brown. What's going on?
No, it's too early.
Yeah. I'm just letting you know. I like to let you know what's going to happen before it happens. If the Kings do not make the playoffs this year, everyone needs to have their head on a swivel. All right. And don't answer your phone. That's what I was going to say.
I think it would be Mike Brown over Monty.
Well,
because Monty was able to land DeRozan.
As Ryan, who says DeRozan's going to work out?
That's true.
How do you know that? There are a lot of people that cover the NBA that don't like the move.
What about De'Aaron Fox? Next year's the last year of his contract.
Yep.
I don't know. To be determined.
To be determined.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate you.
But and maybe you're right, and I know you're right. We shouldn't be talking about this before the season begins, but I'm letting everyone know if the Kings do not make the playoffs this year, Monty McNair is in a lot of trouble.
Yes, I would completely agree with you. And there's things you can point to that have led to this. I would say the 2 past trade deadlines, Grant. Kings were a little active. Nothing like the Mavericks, not big moves, but launched them into the NBA Finals year before. Lakers, small moves, Western Conference Finals. So hopefully we don't get to that, my friend. Hopefully that does not happen. But I think you do have to give Monty McNair credit for getting rid of Jalen McDaniels, knowing that this was not going to work out. Coach Brown saw that immediately once the preseason games hit. Not physical, more of a rim runner. It's kind of like a Davion Mitchell fit to Sacramento, square peg, round hole.
Well, what happened last year in the preseason? What if you go back, who were the Kings really hoping to get a big boost from? And after Mike Brown had a chance to see him in practice and early on, I'm talking about Sasha Vezenkov.
Yep, and Chris Duarte too. A lot of hype around Chris.
And Chris Duarte got a lot of playing time. Okay.
Yep.
And so things change in a hurry. And here's the deal. You know this as well as anyone. Players and coaches alike, but players fall out of favor with coaches all the time in sports. And once a player falls out of favor with a coach, it's very difficult. And a lot of times they've got to be moved.
Yeah, they do. But credit to Mike Brown in this sense, Grant. He's giving guys opportunities when you think they have fallen out, or at least he did last year. Maybe he was backed into that because of injuries. A lot of times those players were ready to go. I mean, we haven't had a situation in a while like a Devontae Adams. You got to get him out of here. It's not working like that. But
very true. Hey, don't forget about Bennett's Prime Seafood and Steak. You go to bennettsrestaurants.com, make a reservation and more. You have a lot of different aspects of this restaurant that I love. The brunch, Ryan, I know you've been there. I've been there for their brunch on Saturday and Sunday. It's fabulous. You've got happy hours, 2 to 6, sips and taste. You got great prices on wines. The share plates are awesome. There's something for everyone at Bennett's. There's all types of different food. I personally love the red fish if I'm for lunch. The New York Prime. Oh my gosh. I just love the New York that I have for dinner. It's just, I love it. bennettsrestaurants.com to make a reservation and more. That's bennettsrestaurants.com.
So good. You want to lick the cutting board. No joke.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Really good stuff.
All right. So one game left on Thursday. I'm not expecting a lot. I think you're going to see a lot of the reserves and players that won't even be on the roster will play. And then you get ready for the regular season. So tomorrow, 3:00, Sean Salisbury talking NFL and college football.
Got a lot to talk about with Sean. Your buddy Jerry Jones, who you did a rant about yesterday, he must not have been happy because he was feisty on the radio this morning.
Yeah, that will be my rant tomorrow. Jerry Jones is a buffoon. And it's embarrassing.
So bad.
It's embarrassing that Jerry Jones is trying to threaten radio hosts who are asking pertinent questions.
Right.
Then don't come on the damn show. Jerry, you're going to open up your damn mouth all the time. You put your foot in your mouth all the time. You say stupid things all the time. You sign the wrong coaches all the time. You pay the wrong quarterbacks all the time. You didn't add anything to your roster in the offseason. You've already been embarrassed several times this year. Shut the hell up, would you please? See,
he just
2
can't
rants
help
on
himself
the show today.
Yeah,
2 rants.
He can't help himself. Hey, Grant, if you're going to threaten the job, just threaten their jobs. Don't be passive aggressive about it. That's what makes it so much worse.
And you know what? That's where the management of the radio station needs to tell the Dallas Cowboys, hey, you know what? If Jerry Jones doesn't want to come on anymore, we'll get somebody else. Have some balls and stick up for your employees.
Yeah, I don't know the dynamics. Some of these stations are directly tied to the team, like Cleveland. They broadcast out of the facility, but
that's the station that airs the games. They're the flagship station of Dallas, and that's why they get Jerry Jones on. But that doesn't mean you got to kiss his ass every time it comes on.
Hey, credit to them. They weren't kissing his ass. I spent about 10 minutes on it earlier today on the King's Court. Right? Grant, Jerry Jones would be a hero in Dallas if he did the big D. Delegate.
I remember when George Karl was coaching and things got really bad. And George came on every week. And I told him, I go, George, I'm just letting you know, when you come on, I'm going to ask you tough questions. He goes, you can ask me whatever you want. I said, okay, I'm just letting you know. And he came on the show and I said, George, have you lost the locker room? That's my question to him. I mean, if you're going to be a radio host and your team's playing horribly, and you don't ask tough questions, you lose all credibility.
Spot on.
I'd rather have a guest cancel on me, okay, than me having to go on the air and ask softball questions over the political correctness of the situation. Screw that. I'm not having somebody on if I can't ask a tough question. And if they say before the interview, I'm not talking about this, I always tell them, well, I'm going to ask you. You can answer it however you want, but I'm going to ask you. Like I never, ever would say, okay, I won't ask you. No, because everyone that's listening wants that question asked. So I've got to ask the question. And once I ask the question, it's up to the individual. They can answer it however they want. They can say, hey, Grant, you know what? I'm not talking about that. Okay, fine. But I asked the question.
You did your job. And on the opposite side, you could lose credibility with that guest if you're chopping it up before, hey, got a couple softballs, and then you hit them with that, and you get them out of the blue, blindside them.
You're right. Jim Rome had Quinnen Williams on from the Jets.
Oh my gosh.
He was only on to promote a product.
It was bad.
And Jim then asked him a question. He goes, hey, basically he didn't want to talk about anything with the Jets. And Jim ripped the hell out of him in the franchise, as he should have. It's embarrassing.
Yep, he absolutely did, but he handled it professionally.
Yes, he did.
He said, Quinn, you got better things to do. I understand. So why don't we get you out of here? But that was a bad one for sure.
Yeah.
So
all right. So tomorrow, 3:00, you got a show tomorrow?
I do not. We yield to you. Well, you know what? No, we do not. We yield to you on Wednesdays.
Yeah. All right. And then we'll look ahead to Thursday. We can come on and do, well, no, it's football season. I don't know. Football game will be over. You want to do a show after the Clippers game on Thursday to wrap up the preseason?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So we'll be on Thursday, after the Kings Clippers game.
Absolutely. Tomorrow, Grant and Sean, 3:00. Don't forget that. And remember, all the audio, if you don't have time to watch the video, go to grantnapier.com. If you don't like that.com, you can download the audio from all the shows. Take it with you on the go. And you can always catch my audio on the King's Court. When we are not on the air live, we upload episodes there.
Please give us a thumbs up. It's very simple. All right. Take 2 seconds. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. Appreciate you. Thank you very much. You're awesome. Can't wait for the start of the regular season next week. We are going to rock and roll right here. We got new merch coming out soon, Ryno, on the team store, so people will be able to look at our new merch coming up very shortly.
That. It's going to be fun, going to be different. You are going to like it a lot.
Ryno, have a good night, buddy.
You too, Napes.
All right, to everyone else, thanks very much. Bye-bye now.